Should Chris Hani's convicted killer, Clive Derby-Lewis, be set free? Why has Derby-Lewis been denied parole by the Department of Justice and Correctional Services? Is the decision on whether or not Hani's killers should be released dependent on Chris Hani's widow? Is the Clive Derby-Lewis parole opening renewed speculation into why Hani was murdered? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tseidu. The Correctional Services Department has promised to give convicted killer Clive Derby-Lewis' application for medical parole urgent attention. Derby-Lewis' lawyer Elsabe Juin said on Monday she was told by the department officials the application would be marked urgent and be treated as a priority. She said the department seemed cooperative after her firm said they would approach a high court to force the department to comply with the law when handling the 78-year-old's application. Derby-Lewis, who is suffering from cancer, has served 20 of a 25-year prison sentence for his role in the 1993 assassination of SACP General-Secretary Chris Hani. The Communist Party and Hani family have consistently opposed the parole application, while the other parties have actually supported it. My guest today in studio, Solima Paila, is the second Deputy General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, and Mr. Paul Kruger from the Verskennersbeweging van Zuid-Afrika. I hope I've pronounced that name well, Mr. Kruger.
Almost.
Okay, you'll rectify me. Soli,
Yes.
Who is Clive Derby-Lewis in the eyes of the Communist Party?
It's a simple murderer. As a person that has refused to be remorseful for his action. And it is the thing that scares us about his possible release, because if he has not become remorseful and has not actually changed, we do not know when he comes out whether he'll coordinate his network again to continue with other murderers or other murders of particularly communist leaders. Which is the main reason why we think that he should have spoken the truth, exposed his entire network, so that that entire network could have been followed. For now, we don't know, because he never spoke the truth. It is one of these main foundations that we've opposed his release, particularly if it's just unconditional release on the basis of a mechanical parole process.
Okay. Now, Mr. Paul Kruger, who is Chris Hani to you?
Well, if Mr. Clive Derby-Lewis is a murderer in the Communist Party's eyes, many people in South Africa view Chris Hani as a murderer as well. Chris Hani propagated a violent struggle. Chris Hani was involved in an armed struggle. If that was an armed struggle from the SACP's point of view, it surely should have been an armed struggle from the other side as well. So if you can't only have a person in an armed struggle from one side, and if someone else is involved in a struggle as well, call him a murderer. I think Chris Hani, in my personal view, was a combatant, if you want, and Mr. Clive Derby-Lewis as well. Clive Derby-Lewis campaigned for a cause, Chris Hani campaigned for a cause, and the sad part of it is that people will tend to, the SACP especially, will tend to view their own cause as a legitimate cause for killing and murdering people, but they won't accord the same rights to the other side. So in other words, they wanted to perpetrate an armed struggle from one side, but the other side was not allowed to kill in turn.
Okay. So you believe that Mr. Clive Derby-Lewis killed as part of the revolution, basically, which was being pursued by the right wing?
Yes, Mr. Hani was a high-profile political figure in South Africa, busy with a political struggle, busy with an armed struggle.
To free both communities, actually, both black and white?
No,
Okay.
no, definitely not.
Oh, okay.
Definitely not. That is the popular propaganda perpetrated from the SACP side. The liberation, the so-called liberation in South Africa of 1994 is viewed differently by different sections of the population.
Mr. Paul Kruger, you're seated next to the second General Secretary of the South African Communist Party. He's a very powerful man in the alliance of the ANC. I want you to address him. Why should he go out and tell the department to release Clive Derby-Lewis?
It is a simple matter in terms of what is best for the alliance. What is in the interest of the ANC? What is in the interest of the SACP? What is in the interest of government of South Africa? If Clive Derby-Lewis is allowed to die as a sick, terminally sick man, old terminally sick man in prison, all the rhetoric in South Africa about peace, about reconciliation, about forgiveness, about bygones being bygones will be a farce. It will be proven as a farce.
Okay. Mr. Mapai, you heard the plea.
Let's start here. First, to deal with this conception of equating liberation struggle with the struggle to oppress our people. This is completely insulting and unacceptable. There's no way in which you can ever equate apartheid with freedom struggle. There's no way in which, in fact, the Conservative Party, which Mr. Derby-Lewis belonged to, didn't have a military wing to continue the struggle. They used the state machinery to continue the struggle, to get as part as different machineries of the apartheid system. This is completely unacceptable and actually insulting. But nonetheless, let's deal with the question of the parole process. The parole process, it's a legal process.
Yeah.
This legal process has got particular foundations, one of which is that the convicted person who's applying for parole must be remorseful. Secondly, is that the parole process is not a right, it's a privilege that can be accorded to particular inmates. Thirdly, is that the family of the deceased, this is now several years ago, there was an amendment to the parole law, have to be consulted. In this instance, we have not yet been consulted. I will also speak here representing the family of Comrade Hani. We have not yet been consulted. When we went to the parole board sometime last year, where Derby-Lewis and the actual, his accomplice, Janus Walush, appeared, we sat there with them. They secretly put in their application that they will ask forgiveness. When we were there, they could not even do it.
Okay.
So we can't even come to that particular area.
Okay. What I want us to do, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll look at the process of parole and see whether indeed Mr. Derby-Lewis was able to subject himself to all the processes as required. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. Please don't go away. We'll return shortly.
Zimbabwe's government appears to be loosening its grip on the diamond trade. A new gazette is making provisions for private companies to cut, polish and even sell diamonds internationally.
Companies will have to apply for permission from the state to sell the gems.
There is now less smuggling of the diamonds themselves, but the issue we now have is transfer pricing.
But civil society groups remain concerned about the illicit trade.
Industry watchdogs say more transparency is needed in the country's diamond trade.
Your World, weekdays between 11 and 12 midnight.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. Our guest today in studio, Solima Paila, is the second Deputy General Secretary of the Communist Party, and Mr. Paul Kruger from the Verkenersbeweging van Zuid-Afrika.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, do you think that Mr. Derby-Lewis actually met all the requirements for a parole?
I just want to get back to the first point Solly made a while ago, differentiating between the struggles of Mr. Hani and Mr. Derby-Lewis. The fact of the matter is, they both were in a struggle. They were both involved in a struggle.
Which one? Maybe we know what Chris Hani stood for. What did Mr. Derby-Lewis stand for?
Mr. Derby-Lewis is a personal friend of mine, so I know very well what he stood for. He stood for self-determination of his people. Mr. Derby-Lewis never, ever fought a struggle for oppressing other people. He fought a struggle for preventing his own people to be suppressed, as we are currently in South Africa. We are an oppressed people.
How so, Mr. Kruger?
Well, people can laugh about it, but my people are being discriminated against in this country.
By who?
In terms of getting job opportunities, in terms of getting tertiary education opportunities. In many instances, we are being discriminated against in this very institution of the SABC. We had it this week again, that Afrikaans is going to be put on a different footing and yet a worse footing.
We issued a statement distancing
Correct.
ourselves from that.
Correct. Fact of the matter is, and there will be many white people who will try to impress the new regime. But let me tell you it from the perspective of the ordinary white man in the street. We are third-class citizens in this country. Don't beat around the bush about that.
Okay, so Mr. Derby-Lewis was fighting for what? For you not to be third-class citizens, to be first-class?
Exactly. Solly says he was utilizing the government's security forces. Mr. Derby-Lewis was in official opposition to the National Party at that time. We had also been jailed by the National Party, me in particular. I personally had been jailed by the National Party.
For what,
For being involved in a bombing campaign. for fighting against de Klerk. So yes, I was also an anti-de Klerk campaigner. We told de Klerk, you are going to supplant one bad system with another one. We don't want to be suppressed.
So democracy is a bad system.
Democracy.
I think we are going to degenerate our democracy, make a chaos of it. If we think bringing on board people like this party for a discussion to question the very essence of our democracy, overwhelmingly supported by our people, and we give them airtime. This, I think, is the wrong form of debate. In the name of democracy, it's wrong. Democracy doesn't mean chaos and retrogression. It means looking forward, going forward, building our nation. And I think that this...
Going forward by keeping the old scapegoats as they were.
No.
Exactly what you're doing.
No. You see, the truth is, we can get statistics to prove that. White people in this country still enjoys a better life than majority of our people. And this is because of historical injustice inflicted upon us by the white minority. And our democratic system did not even punish them, not once. That is why even in this particular matter, an impression is created that actually Clive Derby-Lewis is a victim, when actually we are the victims. And this is completely unacceptable, that the majority should feel the perpetrators of minorities' violence against them. And this is what is trying to create, and we give them this kind of platform in the name of debate. I think that we need to go deeper to question this thing in the manner that we actually debate it.
Well, I guess Mr. Kruger also has a right to air his
democratic
views.
right, of course, which we fought for.
Okay, Mr. Kruger, I had asked, I think we'll get to the current state of affairs, you know, the democratic state of affairs between white and black in the current dispensation. But I just want us to finish off the parole process for Mr. Derby-Lewis. Do you think that he told all?
The first thing I want to say in this context is the postscript of the interim constitution in South Africa, negotiated by Nelson Mandela and others, delivered a plea for clemency for all political prisoners.
Yes.
There was no precondition or add-ons implied or dictated by that postscript. It said that in order to move forward, as Solly now says, we have to forget about the past, we have to forget and forgive, and the people who committed crimes with a political background should be receiving clemency. That is why the TRC came into existence. But when the legislation was enacted, creating the TRC, all kinds of add-ons were created. Like you have to make a full disclosure and you have to do this and the other. And then people decided arbitrarily, okay, you did not make a full disclosure. Why?
So, do you think he made a full disclosure?
What? Let me ask you this.
No.
If someone, I will answer you like this. Mm. If someone sits in jail for 2 decades,
yes.
If he's terminally ill, he's suffering from lung cancer, he hasn't got long time to live.
Yes.
What will he possibly be hiding still? Running the risk of dying a terminally ill man in prison. What kind of exposure could he still...
Conviction is a very strong phenomenon in human life, Mr. Kruger.
I'll tell you, I have an idea of what Mr. Derby-Lewis is going through. He will never sit through this by hiding something and run the risk of dying in prison.
Why do you think, as the Communist Party, that Mr. Derby-Lewis has not told all?
There were many issues, particularly evidential questions during the trial. This is the reason why the TRC did not grant him amnesty. If he had spoken the truth based on clear, simple questions that were posed to him, he would not even be sitting in jail. He would not even be having this discussion about him. He will be released. One, for instance, there was a network which came through during the investigation which indicated, together with Janus Walush, they had a hit list of people they wanted to kill. They were asked a simple question. Who provided them with the hit list? Who gave them the addresses of the hit list? Simple questions. They couldn't respond to that because they wanted to protect certain individuals, and they've succeeded in doing so. In doing so, let him serve time, complete his time in order to protect the people that he was working with.
And die in prison.
So be it if he has to die. What for? As long as he keeps not telling the truth, let him die with the truth.
Okay. I want us to take a break. When we return, we'll wrap up the program. This is Question Time. Please don't go away.
Across the globe, the continent and the entire country, every second there's always a breaking story. SABC News is your reliable eye, ear and information system in bringing you events as they happen. Our cutting-edge and hard-hitting journalism leaves no stone unturned, giving you the whole picture every time. Join us every day on SABC One and know what is happening around you. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
SABC News, we've got Africa covered.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest in studio, Solima Paila. He's the second Deputy General-Secretary of the Communist Party. Mr. Paul Kruger is from the Verkennersbeweging van Suid-Afrika. Ek het dit reg gekry nou. Mr. Kruger, what happens going forward? Mr. Derby-Lewis still remains in prison, and prospects of him being released, although we don't want to preempt what the Department of Correctional Services is going to say, seem to be quite slim.
Mr. Derby-Lewis's legal team will have to bring the necessary application on in a very short period of space if he is to be spared the fate which is staring him in the face. If we can look at the relevant section of the Correctional Services Act, Section 79 says, any person serving any sentence in a prison and who, based on the written evidence of the medical practitioner treating that person, is diagnosed as being in the final phase of any terminal disease or condition, may be considered for placement under correctional supervision or on parole, as the case may be, by the Commissioner, Correctional Supervision and Parole Board, as the case may be, to die a consolatory and dignified death. There is no mention in this section of an act put on the...
That is the amended one.
That's the Correctional Services Act, Section 79.
Oh, he's talking about 1998. It's long amended. That's where, for instance, it doesn't talk about the amended one where the families must also be involved. But so in this case, he doesn't want to involve the family. He doesn't even want to go and ask a simple forgiveness from the family.
He has asked forgiveness?
He has not. We have asked him to tell his lawyers in his presence, in the presence of his lawyers at the parole board. He has not even done so. He only Nicodemously do this in his application for parole.
Nicodemus went to Christ at night. So
I get the gist of what Soli is saying here. All I can say is that the Hani family has been consulted on many occasions.
No, it's not true.
I've read constantly in the media about their reaction. And interestingly enough, the daughter, I've heard on the radio once, stated that whether Mr. Derby-Lewis dies in prison or not, will not bring her father back, and that she hasn't got a problem with this.
Of course, that's the truth, but the formal process has not been followed, Kruger.
Soli,
I was there. The family said, in fact, I also represent them here for your information. They said there's not been any formal request to them. They have not even put a closure on this matter.
But should he die in prison because they want a closure on this matter? Or can they reach out to him and say to him, let us sit around the table and talk about this?
But Mr. Kruger, why should it be the family that reaches out to him and not the other way around?
Mr. Clive Derby-Lewis has made numerous applications. He is in fact never abstained from facing whoever is talking to him or posing questions to him. He will speak to the family, obviously.
But I can say, Kruger, he has not made that request to the family. He has not. He has done it through the media. He has not come to the family.
What is...
He's a very constricted man. He is in the hands of...
But he has access to the media.
Well, not in a direct sense.
Through you, why can't he come to the family?
I will come to the family.
When are you willing to do this?
I am willing to do this immediately.
Okay. Can I therefore say, on question time, through Mr. Mapaila here, we get Mrs. Hani on the show, and you, I don't know who else, you are a close family friend, you get to you make it a point that we get Mr. Derby-Lewis to apologize to the family. Is that something that you would be willing to do?
Well, let me say first there, you guys don't get it. Do you want to bring Miss Hani here to debate about the death of her husband?
No, not to do that. But if he's saying, I want him to commit that this is something they could do.
What I can do is I can obtain a statement from Mr. Derby-Lewis because he's not in a situation of picking up a telephone or writing an email to Mrs. Hani. He cannot get to her in person. But if he gives me a statement in terms of his stance on this and in terms of what he is prepared to do on this, I will definitely take it up with the family anytime.
What are you prepared to accept?
Look, the family will need a legal process.
Okay.
Because this is we are within the prescription of the law, even in our opposition to this.
Okay.
Because an impression is created that we just want this man to die. No. We respect life. That's why we fought to preserve life. Even Chris fought to preserve life. What we are simply saying is that the law must be properly applied. Mr. Derby-Lewis, through his legal representative, must approach our legal representative to say, according to the parole process, in this regard, this man feels he's remorseful and is asking forgiveness from the family. The family will then give a proper response to this.
Is Mr. Derby-Lewis remorseful that he got Chris killed?
Mr. Derby-Lewis, as I say, fought a struggle.
No.
I'm busy answering you.
Yes.
In some people's eyes, he fought an evil struggle, and in other people's eyes, he fought a noble struggle. With struggles, it's always like that.
Yeah.
In the British mind, they fought a noble struggle in 1900 against the Boers. In our eyes, they fought an evil struggle. Struggles are always evil from one side and good from another side. And in Mr. Hani's eyes, I presume that the struggle that he fought, as I say, not for bossing around other people and discriminating against other people. Mr. Derby-Lewis just wanted for our people what he is prepared to grant other people. Living in our own state, under our own government, under our own laws. There's nothing wrong with that. That is the international legal position.
How did Chris stop that process?
The SA Communist Party, if you can remember correctly, their stance during the negotiation process in South Africa was one of, we are not granting these people their own territory in South Africa.
But the Communist Party negotiated under the ANC.
It's not one country.
It's one country.
No.
Kruger.
Countries split up and get together all the time. The Czech Republic and Slovakia was one country, yes, in 1988. In 1992, they weren't one country any longer. So countries are not cast in stone.
Okay.
Boundaries are not cast in stone.
You want Orania?
No, I don't want Urania. I want what is rightfully ours. We can sit around the table and negotiate.
Mr. Kruger, you are aware that you didn't answer my question.
I will answer it. Just pose it again, please.
Okay, it's the same question. Does Clive Derby-Lewis regret to have gotten Chris Hani killed?
Well, I will comment on hearsay if I give you an answer, because I haven't asked that in his face directly to him and obtained an answer for that.
But it's a cause which you're prepared to die for.
I will ask Mr. Derby-Lewis, and then I will be able to answer that question. But what I can promise you from my discussions with Mr. Derby-Lewis, he fought a struggle just like anyone else.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and I don't think we're going to exhaust this. But please keep us informed of what happens, and we would love to hear if indeed he regrets.
That's a fundamental question to be granted parole, remorsefulness.
That was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests, and as you can see, they're still taking the matter up. But let's meet again next time. Goodbye.